in a room full of yeses, while that's a great thing, I want to hire the best fit candidate for my company. And I don't have the opportunity, I don't have the resources and the time to get to know each and every single one of you individually. So where does that leave me as a recruiter? Well, what that does is it leaves me in a position where I am going to go look at your actions and your behaviors as we interact throughout the networking process and understand which of those actions and behaviors indicate to me which ones of you I consider to be a rock star candidate. And those are the ones in whom I'm going to invest my time and my resources to get to know you and see if you're going to be a great fit for my company. All right? Now, in my own personal journey, I went to business school at Carnegie Mellon's Tepper School of Business, and one of the craziest things about that journey is that I started that when I was just 23 years old. All right, so I was definitely one of the youngest in my class, and as you can imagine, I was excited to get into this program, take advantage of all the recruiting opportunities that were available to me. And what I found out very quickly was when I got to campus, recruiters were much more excited to speak to my classmates who had 3, 5, 7+ years of experience. You see, I was being perceived as being too young, too green, too inexperienced to handle those post-MBA level positions. Now, you might be a younger candidate. You might be an older candidate. You might be an international student. You might be a career switcher. Whatever type of candidate you are, you need to understand that there are perceptions that exist from the recruiter's perspective about you as a candidate. And it's your job to understand what those are and navigate through the networking process in a way that will help you achieve your outcome, either by reinforcing or breaking some of those perceptions, because some of them can be positive or negative. So, what I found was that every interaction I had with a recruiter, I was at best put into that maybe or that no bucket. All right? I never saw the light of day of being even a yes candidate or necessarily a rock star. And you can imagine that after I'm going through the same admissions process as the rest of my classmates, paying the same tuition to be in the program, moving across the country to start a new life, this is extremely frustrating to get zero traction with recruiters. All right, after a couple of months of really struggling with this, I just had to step back from the process and kind of reassess what was going on. I talked to my peers, I talked to Career Center, I kind of got all this information, and what I realized was I needed to change the way that I was communicating with these recruiters, the way that I was communicating my value to them, the way that I was creating a relationship with them, and I needed to do something different. And so I did. I made some very specific and very strategic changes to the way that I was networking. And by the time I finished my first year of business school, I'd actually landed an offer with an interview with every single company that I had targeted. Now at that point, I was primarily interested in management consulting, brand management. That included McKinsey, Bain, Booz, Deloitte, PepsiCo, American Express, General Mills, so on and so forth. So you can imagine how excited I was about this accomplishment. I found the right fit company for me, which was Booz & Company, a management consulting firm that's now called Strategy & which is a part of PwC. And I came back as a second-year student with a full-time offer in hand. Now, when I came back as a second-year student, I got to meet all the first-year students who were just as bright-eyed and bushy-tailed as I was a year earlier, as many of you in this room likely are right now. All right? And they were like, dude, you're barely 24. You got all these companies to make you an offer. Like, what's your secret? And I said, really, there's no secret. I just networked very hard. They go, okay, so what does that mean? Like, you network. All right, well, I went to events, I talked to people, I spoke to them on the phone. What did you say on the phone that convinced them? And the questions just kept coming. And so what I realized is that through my earlier struggles and then later through my successes, perhaps there was something that I was doing that my classmates just weren't naturally doing. And so after being asked about it over and over again, I decided to write it all down. So I wrote this 10-page manifesto, what to do, what not to do, emotional intelligence, right? Left it behind for my classmates, so the reputation of my program could continue to enhance as they found amazing opportunities, and I went to go work in management consulting full time. Now, if any of you are interested in management consulting or formerly did consulting, you likely understand that in addition to working 70 or 80 hours a week, your expectation is to take on additional leadership roles. And for me, what that looked like was joining our recruiting and interviewing teams. So Monday through Thursday, I'd be at a client site, and on a Friday, I'd fly to a new program or a new school or a new career conference and go represent my company and talk to hundreds of candidates and make an assessment on who would be the best fit to bring into my company. Now, being on the other side of the table, being the recruiter making the decisions and the assessments on the candidates, I learned a great deal. And one of the key things that I learned by being on the other side of the table was that no matter what program I was at, no matter what school I was visiting, no matter what city I was in, extremely bright, capable, and talented individuals just sucked at networking. all right? And so I'd be having a conversation with someone, and in my mind I'm thinking, dude, you are totally blowing it right now. But I couldn't say that, right? And so I'd say, well, here's our website, make sure you drop your resume. Hey, I gotta go talk to somebody else, right? And it killed me because I wanted to just tell the student, hey, I know you have a lot to offer, but you keep making this one mistake. It's making it impossible for me to be able to hire you. But there were so many students, and so only me, and so it wasn't right context for me to take that student and help each and every single one. And I got extremely frustrated. Meeting hundreds of candidates on a weekly basis, it was like we were both in a room doing a dance, but the other person didn't know the first step. So that frustration led me to reflect on my experience of being a student. And I remember when I was a student, people kept telling me, hey, are you networking? Make sure you network. Networking will lead you to success. But nobody actually told me how to go and do it. And I remember being extremely frustrated as a student. So there I was, frustrated as a recruiter, reflecting on how frustrated I was as a student, and I said, this sucks. So I spent the next 2 years of my life writing this book called The MBA Guide to Networking Like a Rock Star. And in it, I outline an operating model of what it takes to be successful at the graduate business school level in order to get the dream careers that each of you are seeking to get once you graduate from this program, right? How many of you guys, when you graduate, want to have your dream job? Absolutely, right? If your hand's not raised, it's a beautiful day outside. You don't need to be here. And so this whole intent of today's presentation is that what I want to help you do is whenever you make a new connection with someone, okay? Whether it's the mocktails event that you have coming up September 6th, or any time between now and then as you're interacting with each other, or beyond that when you go to some of the bigger career fairs and things like that, or you're making trips up to Phoenix, in any of those contexts, when you make a connection with somebody new, I want to teach you how to land in that rockstar category from the get-go, all right? And for many of you who likely are already networked and have built relationships and want to cultivate those over time, I want to teach you how to shift from that yes or that maybe bucket into that rockstar category, all right? Does that sound good?
Yes.
We can totally talk about something else if you want. Does that sound good?
Yes.
All right, come on. I know it's the morning, end of the week, but you got to stick with me, give me some energy, all right? Sound good?
Yes.
All right, bam. So let's jump into this, all right? So the first thing is networking. What does networking mean? So the interesting thing about this is that one of my favorite things to do is to ask a group of students, just as yourselves, what networking means to you. And there's no right or wrong answer, but I'm just curious to hear, when I say the word networking, what does that mean for you? Yes?
Connections.
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 Okay, absolutely. And your name?
Catherine.
Catherine? All right, great. And Catherine, where are you from?
Northern California.
Northern California. Okay, great. So Catherine says connections. Thank you. Anyone else? Yes? Getting to know new people. Yes, absolutely. Your name?
Isha.
Isha? And where are you from?
Pune, India.
Okay, great. Thank you, Isha. Anyone else? Yes?
Building relationships.
Building relationships. All right, absolutely. Your name?
Anuj.
Anuj, where are you from?
India.
From India. Okay, great. Indians represent. All right. Yes?
Give and take.
Give and take.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Your name?
Felipe.
Felipe.
Yeah.
Felipe or Felipe?
Felipe.
Felipe.
Yeah.
And where are you from?
Santiago, Chile.
Oh, beautiful. All right, excellent. A lot of global perspectives. Anyone else have a burning desire to share? Yeah.
Make friends.
Making friends. Yeah, absolutely. Your name?
Stephen.
Stephen. Where are you from? From Colorado. All right, great.
Knowing your target audience.
Knowing your target audience. Yes, absolutely. So being really focused in terms of how you're building relationships. So there's so many to be made. Your name?
Tej from Hyderabad.
Tej. All right, great. Excellent. Any other burning desires to share what networking means? So, yes.
So Zach from Indiana and remembering people's names.
Yeah, it's remembering people's names. Absolutely. Thank you. And Zach, where you from?
Indiana.
From Indiana.
Yep.
Okay.
I just want to add, like, building a pool of resources, so not only building connections, but
Yeah, so some intentions with the connections, right? So you kind of have something that you can lean back on or reach into or connect others to as well. Yeah, absolutely, Catherine. Thank you. So when I ask a group of individuals such as yourselves, what does networking mean? These are the typical answers that I get, right? Connecting, making friends, remembering people's names, building resources. So all of that absolutely makes sense. However, there are a variety of other answers that I typically hear that I didn't hear today. And oftentimes when I ask a group of people, what does networking mean? I often hear the answer that it means schmoozing, being fake. Long hours after class when I could be at home with my family or friends or getting my homework done, but instead I have to dress up, walk into a room full of people, and try to be impressive. Anyone feel that way about networking? Yeah, thank you. This is why I have a job, all right? So thank you for your honesty. Yes, many people actually feel this way about networking. And my hope is that by the time this presentation is done, it won't feel fake, it won't feel boring, it'll feel extremely authentic and energizing. You know who to connect with, how to connect with them, and how to build a relationship that is mutually beneficial for both of you, all right? Just for us to be on the same page in terms of what networking means in terms of this presentation, I want to define it for you as I do in the book. And the way that I define networking is as follows. Networking is building personal relationships with influential individuals to positively impact career development, all right? It's building personal relationships with influential individuals to positively impact career development. That is a lot of multisyllabic words. What does that mean? Well, this is extremely important, so I want to go deeper into this, okay? And I'll try to start from the end and work my way to the beginning. So positively impact career development. What does that mean? Well, what I mean by that is that many of you wrote fantastic essays to get into this program, which is great, so congratulations on getting in. Now, many of you might be tried and true to what you wrote maybe a few months or years ago, and that's really what you want to do. But very soon, as you get into your classwork, what you're going to find is as you interact with your classmates, as you start getting the content from your professors, you might learn something about operations. You'd be like, wow, I never understood what that really was, and that sounds really cool. Or you talk to someone from finance, like, ooh, I definitely don't want to be doing that, or whatever it might be for your own journey. And that is going to begin to shift a little bit. And in these first few weeks of school, that is totally okay for that to occur. However, what you want to do is zero down as quickly as you can in order to articulate what it is that you want to do, because that is going to be a great foundation to springload you into success throughout networking. Now, why is that important? Let's just say that I'm a recruiter, and I was talking to a student, and I said, well, what do you want to do after you graduate from this program? And they tell me, oh, I want to go work in tech. All right, that sounds great. What are the companies that you're targeting in tech? Well, my top two companies are Facebook and Amazon. Well, as soon as a student tells me that, I'm done having a conversation with that student. I'm going to shift my attention to the other 99 candidates in the room who I hope have done enough research on their own to understand that, sure, while Facebook and Amazon are both highly branded organizations within the tech space, waking up and going to work for them are completely different experiences, all right? I have great friends at both of these companies. My wife actually used to work for Amazon for 5 years, and they have completely different experiences in terms of what you go to work every day, all right? So Amazon is a huge behemoth of an organization, multiple business units, business processes, somewhat bureaucratic, in just a way that all of those speak together because there's just so much activity going on. Facebook, on the other hand, even though it has grown through acquisition, has maintained a very flat organizational structure. So it has virtually no hierarchy. Now, why is that important to you? Well, if you are someone who's earlier in your career, you might want to target a larger, more formalized and developed organization like an Amazon that has a formalized developmental model that will be a stamp on your resume for the rest of your career. However, if you're later in your career and you've already gone through that with another organization, you likely don't want to have to relearn red tape and learn things a new way, but rather go to an organization that is less hierarchical, maybe more startup-like, like a Facebook, in which you can go lead by example. All right? Organizational size, developmental model. These are two of a variety of characteristics that exist for you to do an assessment of fit in articulating what it is that you actually want to do with your career. And until you know where you want to go, I likely will not be inspired to help you figure that out. Now, in certain cases, certain alumni will, but if you come and say, oh, I don't know what I want to do, I'm still figuring it out, that's nice. Let me know what you do. I can't really do much for you. So even if you can limit it to say, well, I'm thinking about doing something that's operations or supply chain, right? Or I'm really into big data, but I'm not sure exactly what I want. If you can narrow it even partially, then that alumni or that recruiter can help you kind of parse out a few details. Does that make sense? So it's extremely important that before you go into these networking events that you have coming up, and luckily you have a few weeks before kind of the mocktails thing kicks off, right, is that you spend about 30 to 40 minutes doing an assessment of fit, all right? And when you gauge in fit, you need to do it across different industries, companies, functions, and roles. And when you can articulate down to that level what it is that you want from your career, that is what's going to enable you to find success when you articulate your dreams and desires to somebody, especially when all 100 plus of you are going to be doing that as well. Does that make sense? Now, once you can articulate what it is that you want to do with your career, then you have to go and tell people, all right? And one of the magical things about being a student is that whenever you tell someone what you want to do with your career, they just automatically want to help you. In fact, you have a whole team of people sitting in the back of the room here who are interested in helping you get exactly where you want to go with your career and helping you on that process. Now, here's the thing. If you have to go to a networking event and you don't know what it is that you want from your career or who in that room can help you get there, well then of course it's going to feel fake. And of course it's going to feel boring because you're going in to check a box to say, hey, I just did that. But when you have an idea of where you want to go and you've done the gauging of fit and you know who's showing up in the room and you can say, oh, if I talk to this person, I can get closer to where I want to go. I'm jazzed, I'm going to prepare to go talk to that person. Now those doors start opening up for you and you see the actual results of your time invested. So don't just go to a networking event to go. Go with a strategy in mind of who you want to connect with and what it is that you want from that individual or what you might be able to give them as well. Again, these are mutually beneficial relationships, all right? Now, who are influential individuals? Well, there's a variety of people who fall into this category. Most obviously the alumni and recruiters of this program, right? So organizations like Raytheon, they're right here in town, like those are individuals that are absolutely influential individuals who can help you in your career. Outside of that, it could be second-year students, right, or upperclassmen who've been here coming back from internships themselves. It could also be folks in the Career Center who for years have placed students like you into organizations and have made connections with those recruiters to know what it is that they're seeking. It could be professors who are doing project work with companies you might be interested in, right? And there are a variety of people that fall into this category. In fact, one of the people who fall into this category are completely random strangers, all right? And random strangers have been one of the most influential individuals of my career. So I want to share with you the story. Rewind back a bunch of years when I just published my first book, right? I wrote the book, I was acting in consulting, doing recruiting, feeling super frustrated, and I said, somebody just needs to articulate what's going on here so people have a clue. So I wrote the book, and then I just kept working in consulting, because that's what I was doing, and I was good at it, and I was on the promotion track, so everything was dandy. So as a consultant, I'm flying 2 or 3 flights a week, right? Which I love, because I love starting a conversation with the person next to me. They don't always like it, but I do. And in this specific context, that person happened to be open to conversation and started telling me about themselves. And they told me things, what he told me was that his name was Joe. He's a second-year student at the University of Pittsburgh, Cass School of Business. And he had just accepted a role with KPMG. So he tells me all this stuff about him, and he goes, Jamin, tell me more about you. I was like, all right, we've got like an hour left in this flight. What do I want to talk about? We're all multifaceted individuals. There's so many things that we can't talk about. So let's just say, he told me that he's going to be joining KPMG, so he's going to be a consultant. I'm a consultant. So I could have talked about hotel points and credit card miles and all the fun things that consultants tend to geek out upon. All right? He also told me that he went to business school at University of Pittsburgh, which is just down the street from Carnegie Mellon. We're almost neighbors. So I could have talked about business school and compared and contrasted our graduate school experience in Pittsburgh. But maybe I didn't want to talk about business or business school, and I want to talk about something more personal. So they showed me pictures of my nieces and nephews. I'm a very proud uncle. I have 2 of my own children now, but those are like my first 4 children were my nieces and my nephews. And so at that point in time, I could have shown pictures of that and talked about my own personal relationships. As Melissa mentioned, I'm a Bollywood dancer and choreographer. I once lived in Australia and started my own dance company. So I could have talked about my passion for Bollywood dance, for Bhangra dancing, how I select dancers, how I create movement, and my passions around that. I'd also, at that point, just returned from my first Burning Man and learned how to spin fire. So I could have shown some really sick videos of me spinning a fire staff in California, right? But out of all of those things that I had I could have talked about, I had also just published my first book. And I didn't know how, but I felt this intuition that talking about this was going to somehow advance my career and just do something for that, right? Really help it scale. And so I followed that intuition, and I turned to Joe, and for the first time ever in my life, I turned to him and said, actually, Joe, I'm an author, which felt really cool to say. And he's like, oh, that's so cool. You have a book. What's the name of your book? And I said, well, my book is called The MBA Guide to Networking Like a Rock Star. He goes, dude, I'm an MBA. I go, dude, I know. This is why I'm telling you. And so the pieces started coming together, and by the time the plane landed, I said, Jamin, this is a great conversation. I love your content, and I really think folks at my school will be interested. Can I connect you with my career center? Yes, please, right? And so he makes a connection. I fly in a few weeks later, have a meeting with them, and they say, Jamin, we've read your book, we love your content, and we want to get a copy of your book for every incoming MBA student. This is like my baby, right? So I'm super excited. I'm like, yes, this sounds amazing. And they said, when we give away your book, we'd love to have you come back and speak to the students to get them kind of motivated and excited about the networking process. And I said, sure, I can put something together. They said, does this date work for you? I said, yes, I can make that date work. They go, great. How much do you charge? To speak? I had no idea that you could get paid to be a speaker. I didn't even know that this was a career that I could have, all right? And that school was not only the first school that paid me, but they then took me to the conferences and career fairs where people like them go to find people like me, which is eventually where I met the team sitting in the back that brought me here to speak to you guys today. All right? And so had it not been out of all of those nice things that I could have maybe talked about with a stranger, me choosing to bring up what was going to positively impact my career, that he would have been able to understand that a connection would have helped me in this process. And now, instead of having to help some company be #1 in their category or whatever, I can, working in some windowless basement room as a consultant for 80 hours a week. Instead, I now have my true dream job, which is traveling around the world, speaking to young, motivated folks like yourselves, and sharing the story of my own journey and the journey of thousands of students to help you avoid those costly mistakes and emulate those things that will help you in your career. This is my dream job, and I didn't even know it existed, and it only opened up because I decided to talk to a stranger about where I was, all right? Now you might be thinking, well, that's cool that you talked about what's going to positively impact your career, but Joe didn't have to help me, right? I could have told him all the stuff about my book, and the plane could have landed, and could have been like, hey man, take care, good luck with your book, see you later, and gone his merry way. But he didn't. He decided to help me. So what did I do in that 1 hour conversation that I had with Joe? What did I do as a 23-year-old business school student who was perceived as being too young, too green, too inexperienced to handle the post-MBA level positions that then convinced every single recruiter I was interacting with to make me an offer to come work for them? Well, the thing that I did in each of those situations, and the thing that I want to implore each of you to do today, is I built a personal relationship. All right? And building a personal relationship is the most important aspect of networking and the most often overlooked. All right? And one of the most difficult to achieve as well. So I don't know about you guys, but whenever I am learning something new, I typically like to approach it with a structure or a framework, something that helps me understand like the landscape of what I'm about to enter so that I can kind of optimize my own input for my own output. Anyone here like frameworks or structures? Yeah, you have like 2 years of them coming up, okay? So I have actually created a framework that will help you create a personal relationship with anyone that you meet. You guys want to see it?
Yes.
All right. What I call it is the relationship hierarchy. Oh no. Dot, dot, dot. There we go. No. Hold on. There we go. What I call it is the relationship hierarchy. And what you'll find is that over time, your level of personal connection will increase over 4 stages: awareness, consideration, acknowledgement, and support. So let me walk you through a very specific example of how this works. Again, imagine I'm not here as a speaker, but as a recruiter representing your dream company, whoever that might be. All right? Now, as I look around the room, I see a sea of yeses. All right? But I'm not truly aware. I'm aware that every one of you are interested in a role in my organization, potentially. That's why you showed up today. However, I'm still looking for those rockstar candidates. Interacting with you guys thus far in this room, there's one individual that stands out to me as someone who I consider to be a rockstar candidate. Anyone know who that is? Melissa. Yeah, I mean, come on, be absolutely. Melissa is a rock star, totally. Yeah? No, not Melissa, though. It's Catherine. All right? Now, why is it that I consider, of each and every single one of you in this room right now, Catherine to be a rock star? Yes?
She took an initiative and participated.
She took the initiative and participated, yes. Earlier, when I was eliciting responses from the audience, that was a test, okay? And most of you did what? Okay, I'm not going to, I got this busy thing to write down all of a sudden. And what did Catherine do? She put her hand up, all right? She put her hand up, and she clearly articulated one single word about what networking means connections, all right? What does that action or behavior indicate to me about Catherine?
Interested.
Interested?
And she's engaged.
Engaged?
Confident.
Confident?
Initiative.
Initiative?
I was going to say what she said.
Yeah, right? Bold, not afraid to share her ideas, wants to move the dialogue forward. Is this the type of candidate that I want to hire and bring into a brainstorming meeting at my company?
Yes.
Absolutely. All right? Do I want to hire the person sitting in the back of the room, kind of on their phone, maybe not fully engaged? Absolutely not. All right? There's a golden rule when it comes to networking, especially at the graduate business school level, and that is how you do anything is how you do everything. All right? You are you, I am me. I don't know who you are except for the time that we get to interact. All right? So if you're sitting up front and you're taking notes and you're smiling, you're nodding, and participating, this is how I imagine you're going to show up when I have a meeting. All right? You're sitting in the back of the room and your arms are kind of crossed and you're maybe on your phone. That's how I see you showing up when you come to a meeting, right? And so who's the person that I'm more interested in hiring? This individual, because she's exhibiting the actions and behaviors of what it is that I'm actually seeking in a candidate. All right? So now, out of everyone, that's somebody that I want to give my time and attention to get to know further. All right? Now, even though Catherine is someone who I consider to be a rock star, Isha, right over here, was the second person to raise her hand and give me her answer as well. All right? Now, Isha, you're from India. What did you do before coming to this program?
I used to work at Capgemini.
At Capgemini. Okay, great. And what was your role at Capgemini?
I was a software engineer.
Okay, perfect. And what do you want to do after your degree?
So I want to go to management roles more.
Okay.
Not technical roles.
Got it. So you're looking for technical management roles. What industry you're from, like, you know?
I have 25 to 30.
Okay, great. Would you like to talk to a few technical managers who've gone through your experience similarly and just kind of, you know, talk to them kind of like mentors?
I would.
Okay, perfect. I can connect you with some people. Now pause. Yeah, thank you. Pause. What just occurred? Even though I consider Catherine to be a rock star, and she was the very first person to raise her hand, I can already tell that Isha would not have been the first person to raise her hand. It's only after Catherine spoke that her confidence rose up, okay? So this is just a dynamic that I can see. However, even though I consider Catherine to be a rock star, I don't know anything about her. I don't know how I can help her. I'm in no position to actually help her. I consider her to be a rock star candidate, but in just a few moments of conversation with Isha, we've moved to the next level of the relationship hierarchy where I can now acknowledge enough information about her background, where she's going, what she wants to do with her career, that I can open up the Rolodex of contacts in my network, opportunities available at my firm, and actually pull out something that could help her. All right? Until I'm able to acknowledge the right information about you, I am in zero position to help you. Yes, you're a student. Yes, you want a job. There's a lot of gray area in the middle. All right? And this is why it's important to actually go out there and network and let people know who you are. If you're going to sit behind a desk and submit resumes all day, I never really get to know who you are. And so the chances of me hiring you are pretty low. It's still possible. It's just very low. So through networking, as I get to acknowledge who you are, I think about the ways in which I might be able to help you. Automatically, I can tell she needs some mentorship. She's not looking for a job just right now. She might want to talk to people who've gone through a similar journey, have shifted into a technical management role, and seen what kind of experience they have. And those are the type of people that I want to then connect her with. Right? So now we've moved to a level of acknowledgement. Now, what you will find is that most people, when they think about networking, is that they get to this level of acknowledgement and that's where they stop, right? We go to an event, we talk to someone, we share some of our story, we hear their story, we exchange business cards, I just networked. This could really be my next job. But if all 100 plus of you today are do that exact same thing, and all 100,000 plus other graduate students who are starting their orientations this same week are all going to do the same thing, and yet you're expecting a different result, that doesn't really make sense. You have to do something different. You can't do the same thing that every single other person is going to do. And what you will find that in a many-to-one or many-to-few scenario, a scenario where there is one speaker, or you're at the Mocktails event and there are few alumni or recruiters there, but many of you, in that many-to-one or many-to-few relationship, you will at best reach the level of acknowledgement. Why? There are just too many people around. We're not going to just go right into support after a little bit of interaction, right, in a public setting. So what I am telling you is that you need to go beyond acknowledgement, and there's one more level. And that is a level of support. And it's twice as much of the personal connection, it's twice as much of the effort level to go from acknowledgement into support. And to get to that level, it won't happen in a many-to-one or many-to-few scenario. It's going to happen in a one-on-one setting, where you have a complete undivided attention to learn more about me and my story, tell me more about you and your story, and help us find the affinities that we share so that I feel connected to you and your journey and want to help you go where you're going. Ultimately, through that interaction, what you're trying to do is help me understand that a piece of me lives in you. All right, and the bigger I see a piece of me living in you, I'm going to want that piece to be successful. Therefore, I'm going to want you to be successful. All right. Even to this day, I travel all the time, and if I'm at an airplane or anywhere I might be, or airport rather, and I see someone with a Carnegie Mellon shirt on, right? I'll be like, oh my God, did you go to CMU? Like, I went there too, and I just start a conversation with them. All right. If somebody walks by me and has a University of Florida shirt on, I mean, no offense, I don't know anyone from University of Florida. I've never visited the campus. I've never been there. I have no personal connection to it. And so I'll walk right by that person. I'm sure you can relate to the same thing. Whenever you find a commonality in someone, you immediately are more engaged and want to know about them. Same thing is you have to build that affinity that we share and help me understand that you have the same passions around the industry that I have. You know, you have the same educational skill sets that I have that's similar in my own journey to get to my position. That you bring the qualities of business acumen and knowledge that are going to help my team so we can collaborate together. Those are all the things that you need to articulate to me when we have that one-on-one connection. So every time you make a connection with someone, your goal is to then get them with one-on-one time so that you can actually build a level of support. And once you build a level of support, it won't matter if you're a younger candidate, an older candidate, an international student, a career switcher, because they will help you jump through those hurdles that the company has put in place and help you jump through them so you can get to your dream job. All right? So this is the strategy of how you want to advance your relationships through the networking process. Got it? Yeah. Great. Now, let's jump down to the tactical level. How do you actually do this? All right? Remember, I said nobody taught me how to actually do this. I'm here today to teach you how do you actually do this. Now that you know what you need to do, how do you go do this? All right? So now, if you want to move someone through the relationship hierarchy, what is the very first thing that you have to go do?
Find a common ground.
What is it?
Find a common ground.
Find a common ground, but even before you find a common ground, you gotta go talk to a stranger, right? Ultimately, right? You gotta find someone to network with and then build common ground with them. You gotta go talk to a stranger. Who in here loves talking to strangers? I know there's a few of you. Yeah, oh, a lot of you. All right. Who in here hates it? I know you're in here as well. Yeah. Talking to a stranger can be very intimidating. It can be very difficult, all right? But it doesn't have to be. If you can imagine, in my undergrad, I studied engineering. So you know, like that nerdy Indian engineer guy, you know what I'm talking about? That used to be me, all right? And now I'm like this extroverted speaker who bothers people on planes. So I wish I could tell you that exact specific moment where things just flipped for me. And I went from being a little bit more introverted and shy into an extroverted person. But there wasn't one single point. What I can tell you was that over time, I found my edge and I pushed it just a little bit. And that has led me to be where I am right now, where I completely get jazzed by starting conversations with strangers. You know, I've traveled to over 50 countries, all 50 United States, and I'm always on the go. And typically I've been traveling alone, so I just kind of get bored. And so I get a train station or a bus stop or an airport. I just start a conversation with the person next to me, and I've been amazed by the magical people in my life that I have met just by starting a conversation with a stranger. I've met life partners, business partners, best friends, people like Joe who completely changed the trajectory of my career just because I started a conversation with a stranger. And so now, like, if I'm in line at Starbucks or whatever, and I'm just kind of waiting, I just start a conversation. We're just waiting in line, right? And I'm like, what kind of magic are you going to bring into my life? What kind of magic am I going to bring into yours? And I get really, really excited to start conversations with strangers. And I recognize that it can be a little bit intimidating, absolutely. So it doesn't have to be intimidating, it doesn't have to be hard, it can be extremely easy. All you have to do is leverage something that I call the 3-word intro, okay? And the 3-word intro goes like this. You go up to someone, you put out your hand, and you say, hi, I'm Jamie.
Nice to meet you, I'm Davina.
Davina, nice to meet you. I'm Jamin.
Hi, I'm Carrie.
Carrie, nice to meet you. I'm Jamin. Hi. Good, nice to meet you. Now, what occurred each of the 3 times I randomly went up to one of your classmates here and used the 3-word introduction to introduce myself? You guys notice something that happened?
They shook your hand.
They shook my hand, yes.
You
They responded with what? Their names. Okay, now look, most of them have name tags here, right? So if I wanted to, I could read them. However, up until now, this is student 14, 26, and 38. I don't know who they are, right? They feel like they have a connection with me because my Melissa told you all about me. I'm here speaking to you. I'm giving you eye contact. You feel like you have a relationship with me. But honestly, there are over 100 of you. This is what I am telling you. I don't have the ability to make a personal connection with each of you, even in this current moment. Imagine a recruiter who's trying to convey information about their company, right? So, until now, I didn't know who these individuals were. By going up and using the three-word introduction, each of them then told me their name, and now I know Davina and Gary and Tej, whereas before I didn't know who they were. We have now finally built the first level of the relationship hierarchy, which is awareness. They're aware of me, and I'm aware of them, like who they are. And now we have built a foundation that can lead to a friendship, mentoring, career connection, whatever it might be. We now have built a foundation for that to occur. All right? 99% of the time, if you go up to someone, put out your hand and tell them your name, they will tell you their name back. 1% of the time, they'll look at you kind of funny and maybe you run away. All right? And this will happen. You will have one failure. So I highly recommend when you leave the room today and you're going about your journeys, find somebody randomly on the street and say, go up to them, use the three-word introduction. If they run across the street, great. The next 99 times will be amazing, especially when you do it with an alumni or a recruiter, okay? Now, we've all been there, right? We've been on a plane, we sit next to this woman, she tells us about her husband and her kids and her divorce and her life. You hear everything about her, and the plane lands, and then you're just not quite sure what to say. Well, it's like, good luck, ma'am. Go get him, girl. You don't know what it is. So you got to get that foundation built early and make sure the names are exchanged and a handshake or whatever it might be to seal it, all right? Even if I'm talking to someone and a minute has gone by, I'll say, oh, I'm sorry, by the way, I didn't introduce myself. I'm Jamin, right? And I'll just make sure that the handshake and exchange of names has been established. So then I know, hey, I'm opening this up for something that could be a relationship of whatever kind, right? You got to build that first level of awareness. Now, couple of tips on using the three-word introduction. Number one, if your name is not Jamin, replace your name with my name. Okay? You can try to be Jamin. Let me know how that goes. However, I highly recommend using your own name. The other thing is it doesn't have to be 3 words. It could be more than that, depending on the context of the situation and your own personal style. So you might want to say, hey, how's it going? I'm Davina, right? Or hey, what's up? I'm Carrie. Or hi, how are you? I'm Deja. You might want to add your last name if it might be a more formalized event. You got to adjust it to whatever might be going on. 3, 4, 5 words is okay. Don't make it 6 or more words. This is just an introduction. So you got to be very clear and succinct with it. Hi, hello, all those type of things. Now, if you understand the underlying aspects of the 3-word intro, there are 3 underlying aspects, right? And while it's a very simple approach, there's some complex psychology going on behind it. If you can understand what's going on in the component tree, you can actually increase your chances of success from 99% to 100%, okay? So there are 3 components that will help you make this more successful. Number 1 is your voice, all right? So if you're in a crowded room and you're walking around trying to be like, hey, I'm Jamie, and have no idea that you're trying to speak to them. So you want to make sure that your voice is projecting and they can actually hear what it is that you're saying, all right? Now, the second thing you want to do is make eye contact with someone. But when you make eye contact with someone and they want words and they start to freak out. They're like, why is this person looking right at me and making eye contact? This is kind of scary. What's going on here? Psychologically, they're awakening to you and they're taking stock of what you're wearing in case they need to, recognize you later on or you give them information. So that is the brain's response because they're sensing something unknown, something maybe dangerous, something different. So now they're just really beginning to pay attention to you. And as soon as you have them in that elevated state, you use the 3rd component. The 3rd component is your hand. All right? When somebody sees this, this is a universal symbol of friendship. All right? So the brain looks at this and says, oh, this is familiar. This is safe. I know what to do. And then you continue moving forward and you say, hi, I'm Jamin.
I am Andy.
Andy, right? One more individual with whom I've now made a connection that I didn't know up until now. All right? You see how it works? So that is a simple and very straightforward way that you can start a conversation with anyone. All right? And especially if you're coming from a different country or culture where you're not used to doing that. Remember, your mocktails event is still a few weeks away, so you can practice it between now and then with all the people in this room. You have about 100 chances to go and practice kind of getting that into your system. So when you do it in a professional setting, you can come across confident. I'm going to be interested in wanting to continue the conversation with you. All right? So that's how you start a conversation. Got it?
Yeah.
Now, once you start a conversation with somebody, what do you got to go do next? What are you going to keep talking to them? Man, life is tough. tough, isn't it? And then you go start a conversation with a stranger, then you have to keep talking to them, hopefully in a way that they find you impressive and wants to pay you lots of money to come work for them. You got your work cut out for you, all right? And you got to do this over and over again. So you obviously have to go and continue, and you got to articulate your story to these individuals, all right? Now, what most people do, again, this is a common pitfall of networking, is that they'll make the introduction, build awareness, and then go directly into, oh, here's who I am, all right? Now, you guys know better. You don't jump to acknowledgement until you have consideration, all right? When I consider you someone whose story I want to hear, I will actually hear it. If you go in it and you slam it down my throat, it's going to go in one ear, out the other, and I'm going to turn my attention to the other student after a minute. All right? So you guys know better now. You need to build that consideration. You need to come in and have some of those aspects that make me say, yeah, tell me a little bit more about what's going on with you. All right? So then you build acknowledgement and ultimately get to support. So how do you do that? Well, you have to go and articulate your story. So how many of you are familiar with this idea or this concept of like a 30-second elevator pitch? Yeah, I guess probably you're working on it. Yeah? All right. So in my book, this is completely useless. All right? Now, before people in the back start throwing things at me, let me clarify what I mean. What I mean is that the 30-second elevator pitch or commercial, whatever you want to call it, is extremely important in practice. Putting in the time and effort into succinctly communicating what it is that you've done with your decades of experience on this planet is critical to your networking success. What I don't believe it's useful in is in application. What I mean by that is don't recommend that you go up to someone, deliver 30 seconds of word vomit about how great you are, and stand there and smile and expect them to be like, you're hired. All right? It's not going to work that way. So, and the whole idea of the 30-second elevator pitch, in case you aren't familiar, is this idea that you walk into an elevator, you know, the CEO of your dream company, I don't know, like Mark Zuckerberg or whoever, walks in an elevator, and you have 30 seconds to tell him something on the way to his executive suite. Now, when a door is opened, he goes, "You, come with me." All right? So I don't really think that's going to happen. And honestly, if a company wants to hire you after 30 seconds of you speaking, then you probably don't want to work for that company. Okay? So what will happen in actuality is you're going to put in the time and the effort of creating your own personal narrative, that your own personal story, your pitch, that's about 30 to 40 seconds long. You didn't really put a lot of time into that. And I'll articulate to you just how much. I put about 20 hours of time into it. All right? Now, of course, I was a younger student with a lot to overcome, so I really had to get my story right. Okay? And then what's going to happen is after you prepare that story, you're going to start a conversation with someone. Maybe you share a chunk of your story, but then you're going to inquire about their story. This is a mutually beneficial relationship. It's a personal relationship. That doesn't happen when they only hear about you and you don't hear about them. So then you can ask them a little bit about their story, and they'll give you a chunk, and you give them a chunk of your story. You keep exchanging these chunks in what's called a dialogue. All right? That's naturally what's going to happen. Now, in certain cases, that recruiter or alumni or other influential individual might turn to you and say, "Hey, nice to meet you. Tell me more about yourself." Perfect. Now you have an invitation to share in its entirety the entire story that you have been working so hard on and delivered in this full 30 to 40 second glory. All right? So when it is requested, now you have the doors open for you to actually go and deliver it. Now, I know you all have been working on your stories, right, and your presenting skills and all this sort of stuff. However, I also need to share with you that as someone who has been a graduate business school level recruiter for over 4 years, I have no joke, heard well over 1,000 candidates just like you give me their pitch. Now what I have learned by hearing so many thousands of pitches is that extremely bright, capable, and talented individuals just suck at talking about themselves. So yes, I have created a framework for what you need to include in your 30-second pitch. You guys want to see it?
Yes.
All right. So there are 4 components. They're very simple. They call them the 4 Ws. But if any one of these components is missing, then I, as an influential individual, cannot help you go where you're going. Okay? So all of these pieces need to be combined into your one story. And they're very simple, but they're all important. The 4 components are who you are, what you've done, where you're going, and why you deserve it. Note, never ever should you say, "and I deserve it because." All right? Should be an implicit statement into what you're saying, not an explicit pitch around selling. All right? Now, why is it that you would create a pitch and give somebody your pitch? What is the point of that? Why are you pitching someone? Yes.
So the engagement alone, then they want to know more.
Get engaged. How to know more. That's absolutely it. You nailed it. What's your name?
Sam?
Sam. Thank you, Sam. Right? Most people say to sell. You're not trying to sell, right? Trying to build engagement. What you're trying to do is if you are opening your mouth for 30 to 40 seconds to speak about who you are, your outcome that you're seeking is that you're looking to elicit a response from the other person, right? You want them to respond to what you're saying in a way that's going to advance things. What is that response you're looking for? Oh, that's interesting. Tell me more. That is it. You want to get them engaged. You want to elicit a response that's going to get them engaged. So you need to test your story. If your story is, well, here I am at this school. Before this, I was at job A, and then I had job B, and I decided to expand my skill sets, and I'm looking for job C. That is so boring. Get over it. Stop using that story structure. Everyone uses it, and it doesn't help you stand out from the crowd. Okay? So you need to tell me something in 30 or 40 seconds that gets me compelled to say, tell me more. I want to know more. All right? So your story has to have all 4 of these components. It doesn't have to be in this order. However, what I like to think of this as is more as a personal narrative. That's the terminology that I use. And in the Rockstar approach, the way that I think about a personal narrative is kind of like a Google map. All right? So if I was to take my phone out and go to Google Maps and put in Tucson, I get a 20,000 level foot view of Tucson, right? I can double click on the university, double click on the downtown area, double click on the airport, and get a detailed view of each of those areas. In the same way, I want you to elevate your decades of experience of working, philanthropy, education, everything that you've done, and raise it to a 20,000 level foot view of you. And once I see that, you add in all the points of interest, add some sprinkles on top, make it look really attractive. But then allow me to self-select where I might want to double-click and learn more, right? So Capgemini, tell me about how many years you worked there, because you left that out, right? Or I might say, oh, you want to move into technical management roles. Have you really thought about what your management style might be, right? I can double-click with Isha and see a little bit more information, either as a testing way or as an interest way, to understand a little bit more about who she is, so I can go further into my Rolodex to find that exact perfect contact that's going to help her in her career. Does that make sense? So you want to give me almost a menu or a buffet to select from, so I can go deeper into what it is that I might be seeking. Now, how many of you in the room are familiar with the saying that knowledge is power? Have you heard of this? Believe in this? Yeah? So I absolutely and I wholeheartedly disagree with this statement. All right? Maybe you're smiling and nodding and you're taking notes. This is great. If you don't walk out these doors today and put this to use today, tomorrow, the day after, at mocktails and beyond, then this is not actually going to help you. So yes, knowledge can be power, but truly it's the implementation of knowledge that is power. So we are going to implement everything that I have taught you thus far in a small activity. All right? Now you guys have had some time to spend time together, but what I want you to do right now is I want you to look around the room, and I want you to find the sexiest person that you haven't had a chance to connect with. I'm just kidding. You're all very sexy. Just find anybody, okay? So this is likely not going to be the person next to you. There are a lot of you. There's staff as well. So there is somebody in the room that you don't know. If you are that social butterfly that does know everybody, find somebody that you don't know so well, okay? So you're going to look around the room, and I want you to find out one person that you don't know so well. And once you find that person, what I want you to do is I want you to go up to them and boy, not yet, guys, not yet. Type A, type A. Come on, guys. All right, let me tell you what you're going to be doing, all right? Now, and that's great. You guys are sitting next to each other and don't know each other, so good. Build a relationship. Just give me 2 seconds, yeah. So, what you're going to do is you're going to go up to that person, and I want you to use a 3-word introduction to introduce yourself, okay? Just practice. What does that feel like? Might be 4 words for you, might be... Just get that into your body so you can start using it. And I want you to start using it more and more even after this is done. But I want you to use a 3-word introduction to introduce yourself. Now, once you use the 3-word introduction, I want you to pick person A and person B. Let's just say person A has the shorter hair, all right? So our friend Andy here will likely be person A in his group. I mean, you're going to give him a run for his money, both of you, I don't know. But one with the shorter hair is going to be person A. Now, person A is going to ask you, person B, hey, tell me more about yourself. Person B, prepared or unprepared, is going to deliver a 30 to 40 second narrative that hits all 4 of the W's on the screen. Based on your response, person B, person A is then going to rate you yes, no, maybe, or rock star. All right? Got it? And then I want you to switch, and I want you to let the other person tell me about yourself. You'll give you their pitch, and then you rate them. Yes, no, maybe, or rock star. Got it? All right. So I want you to find somebody new, use a 3-word introduction, deliver your 30-second pitch, and then rate each other. Yes, no, maybe, or rock star. You have 3 minutes to do this. Go. All right. Thank you so much. I know you guys want to keep talking. We got a lot more to go through. Thank you. Come on back, find your seat, quiet down. That was a really exciting job. Now that you are back, I have 3 questions for you. Alright? My first question is, who met somebody new? Yes, excellent. Alright, you didn't cheat. Now, who in the conversation that you had is this person that you connected with, as you talked about, where you've been, where you're going, found something career related that you might want to continue talking about even after the presentation is done? Who had that happen? Wow, about 60 to 70% of you. Alright? Now, think about this. The most influential individual of your career might be sitting here in this room right now. Alright? They might have an uncle who works for something you work for, or they come from an industry that you want to go work for, or whatever. They might have that piece of information that can connect you. So, I implore you, don't keep your story secret. Share it with everybody here. Look around the room. When you see these individuals in your building outside your classes, go up to them and say, hey, you sit through an introduction, introduce yourself, say, hey, can I practice my story with you? Why? Not only do you get feedback on your story to make it even better, but now more and more people will understand what it is that you want in your career, and it can start connecting to what's going on. Right? So if I'm talking with Madhuri, and Madhuri has experience in, some kind of technical consulting work, and shifted into a management role prior to coming to business school, I go, oh wow, do you know Isha? Because Isha's actually looking to emulate your journey in some capacity, right? Now I can connect them, and who knows what kind of opportunities come. So I can be the influential individual who connects two people together, allowing them to really go to the next level with their right? So each of you, I agree, continue using the 3-word introduction, sharing your story, let it out there, don't keep it a secret. The more people who know about it, the more ideas you have out there, they can look for the opportunities for you. Now, my third and my final question is, who in the room received a rating of Rockstar? Yeah, come on down. Give this man a round of applause. All right, I think it's in the back of the room, so you have to make your way all the way up. It's kind of like Price is Right. You just laughing and then you get up there. Yes, exactly. You got it. All right. Come on up here, then. What's your name? Rishi. Rishi? Hi, I'm Rishi. Hey, Rishi. Nice to meet you. Yeah, there you go. See? Like a pro. Now, Rishi, you are a Rockstar candidate, and so I think it's only fair that your colleagues and your classmates here get to hear, what does a rock star sound like? So we're going to do the same exercise. You just get out there, here in front of everybody. Now, guys, it takes a lot of confidence to be in here. So show Richie some love. All right, now, Richie, the benefit for you is that someone who's done this a lot, I will give you feedback in terms of how to go from great to even more next level. All right, sound good? So I'm going to ask you a little bit through your discussion. I'll say tell me more about yourself. What I want you to do is don't worry about them. Don't worry about what's up here. Just tell me your story. Now, you're doing it in front of 100+ people. You might get nervous. It's okay if you suck. Okay? It's a learning opportunity for everyone. All right? So you ready? Hi, I'm Jamin.
Hi, I'm Rishi.
Hey, Rishi. Nice to meet you. Tell me more about yourself.
So, I'm basically from India. I'm an engineer. I worked in data science earlier. And I want to get into management consulting. So, I'm looking out for jobs in Big 4 companies.
Okay, round of applause. So, a couple things to share with you. I know, it gets nervous up here, guys. Until you're up here, you don't know. Don't worry about it. This is a great learning opportunity. So, I want you to use that. One is in terms of your content, one is in terms of your delivery. I'm going to start with the delivery first, and then we'll get back to content, okay? So, one of the things that people always ask me is, Jamie, if I'm at a networking event, what do I do with networking, right? You can totally do this move if you want, stand out from the crowd. You probably won't get hired, but you'll stand out, okay? So, you got not only are you telling your story and doing all this stuff, but now you have to worry about like hires, standing, and moving, all this sort of stuff. So, here's what my advice is to do. Okay? Whenever you're in a networking setting and you're doing this, you always want to have one foot oriented to the person you're speaking to and one foot open to the room. Rishi has already done this, right? So he's already got it going on. Great work. And his structure is good. Now, why is that important? Well, you want to avoid kind of locking somebody into a conversation they feel like they can't get out of. So by having an open stance, allows the energy of the room to flow out, whether it's somebody else coming in or whatever else might be going on. Now, the other thing to do is that once you have this open stance, you actually adjust your posture in this stance in order to break or reinforce certain perceptions that might exist about you as a candidate. What do I mean? Here's what I mean. If you happen to be a candidate who is a little bit more shy or reserved or quiet, right, a little more kind of introverted person, or you happen to be East Asian and are perceived that way, true or not, well then what you can do is actually shift your posture to your forward foot. Now what do you see kind of happens when I do that? You'll notice that a little bit more bold, a little bit more present, a little bit more in this conversation. So even though my voice might be quieter, by coming in with, and I'm not like the Leaning Tower of Pizza, okay? But I'm coming up with a little bit more bold of a stance, so you can tell I'm bold, I'm effective in this conversation, and I have a little bit of a quieter voice, but I'm letting you know I'm here, all right? And also, if you have it in a loud setting, and people are always like, I'm sorry, come again, what did you say? Now your mouth is that much closer to the ears, so you don't have to use this. Okay? So if you happen to be in that category of students, this is a way that you can actually break that perception and come in with a little bit more bold energy. Right? Now, if you're at the other end of that spectrum and you are Italian, South American, or Indian, the perception is that you are way too aggressive. Hey, how are you? I really want to get a job. Okay? People laugh, right? So again, perception is you are out. So in that context, what you can do is, again, in this stance, just move your posture to your back foot. Now, what happens when my shoulders kind of relax, I'm calm, I'm cool, I'm confident, I'm exuding what I call executive presence, right? And it's extremely important if you happen to also be a younger candidate. I love younger candidates. They have so much energy, right? Like, oh my God, I love your brand. I want to come work for your company, and it's just like cheerleading, right? And I love that. However, if I only consistently see that one side of you, what do I begin to think? Well, I love the energy, I love the enthusiasm. Can I put them in front of my senior partner or VP? Can I put them in front of a client? I just don't know how they're going to. So, again, you can leverage the posturing, right? So just come in and say, hey, I'm 23 years old, I just finished undergrad, I have 1 year of experience, but I'm really excited to work in your industry. I'm ready to be put in front of your senior VPs and clients day one, and I have a lot of energy and excitement for your brand. You see how you can kind of combine those? So that I can see, wow, this person is going to be really fun to work with, and someone I can trust to put in front of a So I want to see both aspects of you, and just by adjusting your posture, you can actually break some of those perceptions that exist. It's going to build more consideration, right? The actions and behaviors that build consideration. Because if you're just like, hey, I'm an Indian person, I really want to get a job, and I want to tell you all about who I am, I gotta go to the buffet, right? Like I don't want to hear it. Whereas if you're like, hey, you see how that kind of makes the opportunity more open? So that's what you want to think about. Depending on where you are in that spectrum, you can adjust your posture in this stance, okay? So for you, in general, you had the right foot stance, and in terms of your hands, you kind of had them down here and kind of in the back. So what do you do with the hands? I never ever recommend hands together, feet together, okay? Especially if you're a woman. What does this sort of posture indicate about me?
Submission.
Submission?
Closed.
Closed, yeah. I heard one more.
Vulnerability.
Vulnerability, sure, yeah, right. Just kind of, lack of confidence, right? So it's kind of like, well, I'll go make the coffee. You're not here to get hired to make the coffee anymore. You're here to get into leadership roles. All right, so you have a powerful stance. The open stance is something that I recommend. In terms of your hands, pockets, they tend to be a little bit too informal. They might be okay for like tech or maybe the nonprofit world, right? Depending on the company. You need to check out the culture, so I don't recommend the pocket. What I recommend is what I call active hands. So I keep my hands right here where they're very active, and then I'll talk with my hands, because that's what I do, and I'll come back and I'll kind of like listen actively, right? So that's what, again, our recommendations, if it feels awkward, do what feels good for you. In general, I didn't notice anything negative about what you did, but you were just like a little bit kind of just like stiff around the way your delivery was. So if you added a little bit more of your body into your words and connected it, I'd feel them a lot more. Okay, so now let's go into your content. Your opener was, so basically I'm Indian. Yeah. Which tells me nothing. Tells me nothing about what might qualify you for what you want to do. I don't understand why you're basically Indian, whereas you might be also something else. I don't understand. So that whole comment just lost me, okay? If you're Indian in this room, raise your hand. It's not a differentiator. Okay? It's not a differentiator. So opening up and just saying like, I'm a student, I'm Indian, whatever, none of those things are landing on me at all. In fact, immediately I'm like, oh dear God, here we go. Okay? So you cannot use that as an opener, right? And one of the things that I really want to encourage is this idea of who you are. Okay? So before I get to that, I just want to talk about the other things. So you told me it was a very short, it was like a 10-second thing, right? So, and it told me nothing really about you. So you told me basically I'm Indian. That didn't tell me much. That gives me any information about you. So I can tell that, right? Then you said that you worked as an engineer. Data scientist. You didn't tell me how many years you worked.
Yeah.
How many years have you?
2.
2 years, okay. And then you didn't tell me what company you worked for, what kind of work you did.
Tata Technologies.
Oh, I've heard of that company actually, believe it or not.
Okay.
Dude, everybody knows Tata, okay? So why would you work for one of the most highly branded companies in all of India and then not tell me that you are working for that company? Right? There's a huge disconnect here.
Right.
That's like me saying, oh, I worked for consulting for a while, a couple years. And so I'm thinking like, like a small 20-person consulting firm. But who did you work for? McKinsey. Yeah, all right? So if you work for Tata, you got to tell me.
Right.
I work for Tata and this is what I did. Because I already understand like what Tata brings to the world. Like I understand that brand value is really high. So you need to come in and really be powerful with articulating to me the kind of work that you did. Because if you say, I was a data scientist and I'm thinking you worked like in a lab or something like that. So there are ultimately, between what you tell me and what I hear, there is a story, right? And there are components in that story. If there is a hole in your story, then I, as an influential individual, can only fill it with the best thing that I have available, which is what?
Yes.
An assumption, yeah. And that assumption is likely not going to be in your favor, because if you're not telling me what you've accomplished, it's likely because you're trying to hide it, and and you're not telling me the full story. So if you have experience with Tata, you need to tell me who that is. Otherwise, I'm going to assume it's some small 20-person company that your dad owns. That's going to be my assumption, right? So if you're not telling me, you're leaving a lot of space on the table. You need to articulate to me very clearly what's going on. Now, in your case, you don't have to go into the details around 2 years of experience, because that's like right at the border number. You can say, well, I worked at Tata, and throughout my time there, I got to work on a variety of projects, which included blank and blank and blank. What I learned from that was blank and blank and blank. So the way that I kind of look at it is, I have had blank number of years of experience working in this industry or this company, whatever, so whatever that umbrella term might be for you. And during that time, I worked on projects such as, or in roles such as, or for companies such as A, B, and C, through which I learned X, Y, and Z. You see how that kind of comes together? You got to tell me the outcomes and summarize all that stuff, and that's going to be more important. And then you told me that you want to go work in consulting. Cool. That you're only targeting the top 4 consulting. Cool. And to me, that's kind of like, okay, you haven't done your research, right? Like you haven't done your research to see if any of the top 4 consulting firms are going to be a best fit for you. You're chasing the brands, and I'm not going to sit here and try to figure out which one's going to be a good fit for you and things like that. Right. So if you told me, well, my top 2 companies, and I had a conversation with somebody earlier, right? That you might want to say the best fit companies for me are Bain, A.T. Kearney, and Deloitte. Okay, so now I hear a top 4, and then I also hear something else. I'm like, oh, you've really done a cultural assessment through not just the 4 main companies that people target, but you've done a broader analysis to understand that you might fit in other companies as well. That makes you much more trustworthy and approachable. Whereas if you're like, I want to target the top 4 consulting firms, and I'm basically Indian. That doesn't, there's no validation there of why I want to help you do that, right? So you want to build in that construct of like more details around what you've done. Make sure you talk about your company. And then the other point I wanted to make was the who you are piece, all right? The who you are piece is that you're not Indian. You're not a student. You're not, that's not what I mean. What I mean is, who are you, all right? Are you a numbers person? Are you a people person? Are you a problem solver? Are you a creative? Like, who are you at your core? Open up with a little bit more of this is who I am. I'm someone who loves data. I worked as a data scientist with Tata Technologies, and I worked on a variety of projects in which I learned X, Y, and Z. I'm going to bring my data science knowledge along with my interpersonal skills to consulting, because I know that I can actually build trust and get things done. That tells me, I just made that up, right? But that tells me way more about why I want to say, tell me more, than what you told me before. So think about, who are you? Who are you? And bring that to the table, and everything else that you tell me should reinforce who you are as a person. Does that make sense? All right, so round of applause. Thank you. Is that helpful to see that breakdown? All right, so there's a lot of things that are going on in there for you to consider as you're going through that process. All right, any other thoughts, questions, or reflections right now?
Can you try incorporating what you said real quick?
I'm sorry?
Can you try your suggestions? Can you try incorporating your suggestions real quick?
Absolutely, that's the whole reason I'm telling you.
Can you give it a try?
Oh, again up here right now? I might be able to do it at the end. I just want to be respectful of our timing. So I have a lot more content. We're not done. There's a lot more to teach you. Don't think like you know, oh, I know what to do, I'm going to go do it. Hold your horses, there's still a lot more to be done, okay? So I want to give you more of the content that gives you the full journey. At the end, if we have time, I would be happy to do that. We do have time for Q&A at the end as well, okay? But this is something that you also do together and incorporate. You have an entire amazing team of career services staff in the back that know exactly everything I know and can give you the same feedback as well, okay? So yeah.
Since you just used that example, how would you subtly tie in the why you deserve it part?
Sure, yeah, this is great. In fact, the reason I always ask the questions is that most people ask me this question. If you didn't ask it, I would have asked it, redundantly to my own self and answered it for you. So thank you for asking the question. The why you deserve it piece, what does that mean? How do I bring it in? The why you deserve it piece, again, should be implicit in what you tell me, not an explicit statement. However, there are three components of what falls into the why you deserve it pathway, okay? The first is having a relevant experience in what it is that you want to go do. All right? Where Rishi just failed was telling me how his 2 years of experience as a data scientist with Tata translated to the exact work that he would be doing as a management consultant with the top 4 company. Right? He was like, I was gathering information, I was doing analysis, I was building relationships with people to help understand and interview them and get more insights, and I was putting all this together and creating outcomes that would help the company move forward with their strategy. Well, that's exactly what you're going to be doing in consulting. So you have relevant experience. You just didn't articulate it to me, so I don't feel why you deserve it. Does that make sense? So that's the first one. If you're an accountant and you want to do consulting, if you were a teacher and you want to do marketing, it doesn't matter. You just have to find what is a transferable skill set. Okay? The second thing is you have relevant education in what it is that you want to go do. So being here in these programs, this is going to help you, give you that relevant education. It's going to be part of your journey of, well, I decided to come to Tyler to get this degree so that I can, what? Why? Why are you here, right? Understanding that is a key aspect of what's going on. Or if you have any other certificates or other things that you've done as well, other graduate degrees, undergrad, any of that falls into the relevant education. And then, outside of those two, the third component is your passion. Okay? If you're truly actually able to articulate your passion around achieving what it is that you're interested in doing, that is going to convince me that you deserve to go where you're going. Okay? What does something like that look like? Well, that could look like the idea of, well, I'm someone who always loved volunteering. Whenever a natural disaster would strike somewhere, I would go and deliver aid and medical aid and all those sorts of things. And recently, my grandma went through her last days through the medical field, and I saw just how much suffering there was in our own country and how broken our medical system is. So I decided to come get my MBA to learn about operations and management and finance and all those things, so you can go work in the medical field and fix some of these low-hanging fruit that are denying service to some people like my grandma. Come on, guys, right? Like, my gosh, even if you don't have straight A's in all your classes, even if you don't have whatever, I know that if I put you in this position and I train you to do something, you're going to be so passionate about driving this outcome because you lived it. You lived it with people around the world who don't have access to medical stuff. Your grandma went through this journey and you realize how broken our own system is, and you are passionate to fix it. I want to help you just live that passion, and I trust you that you're going to do the right thing. Even if you may not have all the right background and skill sets and all those things, I connect that passion, and I'm like, wow, you really deserve this. Let me help you in some way. It may not be hiring, it may be hiring, it may be a variety of things. So those are the three categories that you want to put in. Now, let me be clear, all right? As a recruiter, I've heard this so many times. People will always think, Gene, I really want to work. I'm so passionate about management consulting. No, you're not. Okay? You can be management consulting, investment banking. Nobody's passionate about those things. You might be passionate about working on dynamic teams, traveling around the world, solving big problems, working at executive level, all of which are provided to you by management consulting, but nobody is passionate about management consulting. You understand what I'm saying? There has to be an authentic passion that you share with me. If you just use the word passion, and throw it into your story, you're not going to engender that trust that is going to make me want to hire you help.